Oh, I just want to put a disclaimer out here. We are going to be talking about sex. So for my family members, for my younger cousins and things like that, if you don't want them watching, or listen to a video where we're going to be talking about sex and, some things that go on, is go on ahead and just, say this video till they get a little bit older. But if y'all don't want to hear about, that portion of, my past life and all that, just know we are going to be talking about sex. And if the word sex and the title and the topic of sex makes you uncomfortable, then I don't know what to tell you, because this video is going to be about sex. Say it with me. Sex, 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 sex. I know y'all see something a little different, pop out every so often. Peep, peep. Okay, this is not a hair video. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Keena and this is She's Altered. If you are new here, make sure that you go on ahead and click that, I think it's in this area, that subscribe button right there. And go on ahead, stay connected, stay tuned with the family. Join the Altered Life family. You know that you guys are my brothers and sisters. Don't forget to turn on your notification bell for whenever I drop a new video. But if you are new here, I just want to welcome you to the Altered Life. You are an OG, triple OG subscriber. I just want to express my love and my appreciation for you. I appreciate all the ways in which you guys support me, the way that you guys share my videos, the way that you guys, comment, leave your comments, give me thumbs up and stuff like that. It just really supports me. It really helps push forward the vision that God has given me for this channel. And it's my online love language. My online love language. And if you want to do that, is by your support of sharing, reposting, telling a friend to tell a friend, and subscribing. So I just want to say I appreciate you and I love you all so much. So as you can tell from the title of the video, I'm 24 and I have never had sex. Yeah. Some people will probably find it really hard to believe that in this year of our Lord 2020 that it is still possible for people to remain virgins, and I just want to show you it is very possible. Hard, yet it is possible. So as always, I got my handy dandy iPad down here, so if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. I'm going to try to get through this as fast as possible. I'm still not sure yet if I may split this video up into two parts, because I got a lot of notes. We got a lot of stuff to cover, but I'm trying to, like I said in my last video, I'm trying to keep things down into a reasonable time, but we just gonna see, okay? If this ends up being a long video, then just go on ahead and pause, go grab you some snacks, go grab you some coffee, some tea, something, whatever time of day you're watching this at, some hot chocolate, and just sit back and relax, because we're gonna talk about something real good. Okay, so I guess we can go back, to how I even am able to be at this point right now. So growing up, I was always taught to save my body for my husband. Boys are a distraction, focus on your schoolwork and things like that. So I kind of really took that to heart, didn't all the way understand like what all that meant, but I just knew like, okay, well, save your body for your husband. All right, when I get married, then it's going to be like a gift that I'm presenting like to my husband. Like, of all the people that I've tried, I was thinking about you and I saved it for you. But yeah, growing up, I was taught save your body for your husband. I wasn't really taught like why, like the reasons of why is just because like, distraction and focusing on schoolwork and stuff like that. But the actual like why, biblically why, and why God designed sex to happen within the context of marriage, I didn't really have an understanding of that growing up. So which contributed to, which all we're going to talk about today. I also was able to see how sex affected people around me, like people that I went to school with in middle school. Parents, check on your kids, because they doing sexual stuff in elementary school, definitely in middle school, and for sure in high school. But growing up, I seen how sex would change the people around me, people that I were friends with, who I knew when they were virgins. The moment that they lost their virginity, they switched up. It's like their whole character changed. They started to become consumed around that person, like their whole being changed. And whenever I would see that happen, that would be a lesson for me, and I would be like, Okay, if that's what sex does to y'all, then I don't want no parts of it. So like, the more that I kept seeing how sex affected people around me, it kind of helped me in a sense, kind of like, okay, yeah, I don't want them problems, I don't want to deal with that. But the fact that, you know, pretty much everyone I knew, they knew that I wasn't having sex, that I said, you know, no, I'm saving my body for my husband. You know, I don't believe in having sex until marriage. And people would tell me that I was going to be single forever, that I was going to get cheated on, that my standards were too high, that I would have to compromise in order to keep a man. They would just say some really, really rude and like mean stuff, to be honest. Like, I was just never going to be happy, because like, if I don't give somebody sex, then pretty much what am I worth? I'm not worth anything. And then they even said that when I went off to college, that I was gonna wild out. They was like, yeah, you gonna wild out, you gonna do this. And literally, like, whenever I would come home and I would get back around them, they wouldn't ask me how's school, how's Texas, how's, you know, life. They'd want to know, has anybody got to you yet? Have you let anybody get in there? And I would be like, wow, like, y'all really think this about you, just waiting for somebody to taint me or whatever it was that they were thinking at that time. But they would keep on asking about my sex life every time that I would come home, and I would tell them, no, like I said before, saving my body for my husband. I don't plan on having sex anytime soon. This video is, you know, it's briefly about, you know, how it is I've been able to remain a virgin up until the age of 24, which I am currently. But this video was more so about purity, because growing up, I knew not to have sex, and I knew to save my body for my husband, but I had no understanding about what purity was, what purity meant. And although at age 24, you know, I've never had sex, I was definitely not walking in purity. I thought that at the time, I thought that purity just meant not having sex. I didn't know everything else that came with purity, which is what we're going to talk about. So then my idea of sex was related to penetration. Like, I knew, you know, any activity that involved penetration of any, you know, sort, like, those are the things to avoid. That's sex. That's a no-no. Like, that's the boundary. You don't cross that. But because I didn't have an understanding of what purity really meant, I would try to get as close to the line as possible without going over the line. And then I was never trying to be the initiator of it. See, I thought I was, you know, my little fast tail, I thought I was slick. I was trying to, you know, get them all worked up so that way they could be the ones like pushing the boundaries, and then like I just, you know, just go with it or whatever it was I was thinking at that time. My mindset at that time was, as long as I'm not the one doing it, but if stuff is being done to me, then it's okay. But if I'm the one doing stuff, then that's where I'm messing up. Like, I literally thought that, like, you know, hey, how close can I get without, you know, crossing the line? Because the way that I was taught, the line was having sex, and to me, sex meant penetration. So as long as I don't cross that line, I'm good. And I had heard about how, you know, even thinking about sex is like, you know, not okay, and it's like a sin to lust in your mind. But I honestly really didn't understand it, because it wasn't explained to me very well until much later on. But my justification to combat that was that I would fantasize about sex in the context of marriage with whoever it is my future husband was. So like, I used to read very sexually explicit books, like, you know, that them 50 Shades of Grey books. Now, you know, them books is not for a child of God at all. And 50 Shades of Grey books, even the last Twilight book, because like I like to read, and I'm a very visual person, so whatever I read, I try to see it. So that was kind of my scapegoat. I would read sexually explicit books, I would listen to a bunch of love songs, a bunch of sex songs, I would watch a whole bunch of romantic movies, and I would try to visualize myself in those scenes as if, you know, that was me and my husband, and we were married, and this is what we all did on, you know, this is what we did on our wedding night. So for me, like, pornography and masturbation, that was never an issue for me. Like, I tried that stuff, but it just didn't really work out. I didn't know if if it just wasn't my thing, or if I just didn't know what I was doing, or sometimes I thought I was broken because I was like, stuff ain't feeling right the way that people talk about how this is supposed to feel. I ain't feeling it, so maybe I'm not doing it right. So yeah, that stuff just wasn't for me. But I didn't need to go out and watch pornography, watch videos and stuff like that, because I could literally read something and create it in my mind. I can listen to something, create it in my mind. Like, I would, even when I was, in that mood, okay, and I was trying to, satisfy that mood, I would literally force myself to go to sleep, and I would be going to sleep thinking about a sexual situation or a sexual scenario with my husband. I would literally always go to like, ooh, what me and my husband do on our wedding night, and I would like go to sleep trying to force myself to have a dream about that. And a lot of times I would like have sexual dreams where, I'd be having sex with somebody in my dream, and the dreams would feel so real that when I woke up, like body parts was tingling as if, and I'm like, now wait a minute, that was a dream, like that ain't really happened. But I come to later find out, what all that is, that incubus, succubus spirits and stuff like that. But at the time I didn't know that. So I'm over here, this is my way of getting around, not physically having sex. But I was like, all right, well, if I'm not doing it, then at least I'm gonna think about it. Like, if I can't do it physically, then why can't I think about it? Like, I'm not actually doing anything, I'm not actually sleeping with anybody, and I'm not thinking about it like, oh, I see so-and-so walking over there and I'm thinking about having sex with that specific person. To me, I thought it was okay because I'm thinking about my husband. Because I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about it in the context of marriage. No, that's not okay. That's sin. You're lusting in your thoughts. Like, that's not pure at all. And honestly, like, there is truly no natural reason as to why I can still say that I am 24 years old and I have not had sex. Like, there's absolutely no natural reason, because I've been in so many situations to where I almost crossed the line, where I came up to the line, where I secretly like low-key wanted to cross the line, but the dudes that I would be with at the time, they didn't cross the line because they knew what my line was, but they was kind of hoping, they wanted me to initiate the crossing over the line, but I wanted them to kind of like make me initiate, yeah, all of that. But there is absolutely no natural reason as to why I have not lost my virginity. No natural reason. When I tell y'all I was this close, I was that close on multiple occasions. And literally, I'm sure it's probably the prayers of my mama and the Lord's will and desire for I don't know what it was, but I know it wasn't me, because I would be in those moments and like the conviction would be so strong in those moments that I was like, I can't even do it. Like, and it's like, even though I didn't engage in acts of penetration and things like that, there were other things that I did participate in that brought me so much shame in the moment. And like, the only reason why I would even do those things is because I felt like, in a sense, that I owed those guys like a little something. Like, there was a lot of things I told them, like, hey, I'm not doing nothing. I ain't putting my mouth nowhere. I told y'all we gonna be getting real in this video. Okay, so this is definitely not for kids, but I told that I'm not doing that. Like, no. But the thoughts and the voices of what people used to tell me back in high school, about, I'm gonna have to compromise to keep a man, I'm gonna be single, I'm gonna be lonely forever, things like that. It made me feel like I owed them something in return, like, at least a little something, since they did something for me, that I owed them a little bit of something to get back. And after I would do whatever that thing was, which I'm not going to get in detail about that, because we definitely not going to give no glory to the old, no, I'm not going to do that. But I would do that stuff and I couldn't even look myself in the mirror. Like, I couldn't even look at myself in my eyes, because I just knew, like, because I could feel the conviction strong and heavy for, like, definitely not crossing the boundary. But even in that whole situation, it was just like a big old, like, lump in my chest. And I felt like if I were to look myself in the eyes, it was like as if God was looking back at me and just like, oh, so disappointed. Like, I couldn't even face myself. That's how, like, ashamed and stuff that I felt. But because, you know, I had loneliness voids at that time, because I had you know, I was broken at that time. My standards were definitely low at that time. My self-esteem was low. Like, all of that. Like, I was craving the attention and the physical touch, you know, of a boy. I ain't even gonna say man, I'm gonna say of a boy. And that's all I wanted. I really just wanted to cuddle. Like, that's all. I just wanted to cuddle, and I just wanted you to touch all on me. That's all I wanted. But and I was trying to fulfill all of those internal voids that I had going on: rejection, loneliness, low self-esteem, all of that. I was trying to fulfill that within the company of a boy. So even though, you know, I'm 24 years old, never had sex, but my last encounter of impurity was about 3.5 years ago. It wasn't until that I joined, it wasn't until first I joined this Bible study group, like, that semester after, in that spring semester. I joined this Bible study group that was led by my big sister in the spirit, and that is when I truly learned about, like, what purity, like, really, really was. And after that incident with that person, I made the decision, like, okay, like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, because I had been trying to, like, leave this person alone before, failed multiple times, because I liked their company, I liked their cuddles, I liked all of it, and I wanted it. But I knew that God had told me multiple times, leave this person alone. But after that instance, I made the decision. I was like, okay, God, like, I'm leaving it alone. Like, leaving it alone. I'm just gonna focus on you. I'm not gonna use, you know, other people to fulfill my voids of loneliness and, you know, wanting to be touched and held and all that kind of stuff. So I'm leaving it alone. So yeah, I joined the Bible study group, and being amongst community and having accountability really, really, like, helped, where I didn't feel, even though, like, I was dealing with loneliness at the time, like, having that community and accountability, they were very, very good distractors. Because I think I think the fact that I was like, this was the transition. I made a video about my lonely season, and so at this point, this was a transition from, like, my lonely season, and then God finally bringing me community. But I think that if I wouldn't have found community at that time, I probably, you know, would have slipped up and wanted the companion of a boy again. So I just thank God for community and accountability, and you need community. You can't do this walk on your own. Like, you can't, absolutely cannot. So now let's talk a little bit more about purity. So purity is way more than not having sex. Like, way, way, way more. Purity is a heart issue. It's a heart posture. You can look pure on the outside, but on the inside, you're nasty. Purity involves your whole being, your body, your mind, and your spirit. You can look very, very, you know, you can look the part on the outside. You know, you could dress all modest. You know, you could be not engaging, you know, in anything that people can see. You could be not be engaging in any behaviors that people can see, but you could be rude. You could have a mean and a nasty attitude. You could be defiling your mouth with curse words. You could be, you know, defiling your body with intoxicating substances. You could be walking around in bitterness and with an unforgiveness in your heart. That all of that is tied into purity. If you walking around like that with a nasty attitude, a nasty inside, like, you got to work on your purity, because purity is not just what you do with your body. Matthew 5:23-32 talks about, if you're offering your gift at the altar, then leave it there and go reconcile with your brother. If you are walking around in unforgiveness, in bitterness, in anger, and in hatred towards your brother, then you are not walking around in purity. You do not have a pure heart. Purity is a heart issue. Purity is a heart posture. When your heart is pure, everything else on the outside will reflect that. Just not having sex, that don't mean nothing. Like, when I really sit here, I'm so glad by the grace of God, I did not do anything, but I'm literally just sitting here thinking like, at the time, I really thought that I was doing something by not having sex. I really thought that I was, out here living a day like, oh, well, I'm not having sex. Like, I'm saving myself till marriage. I really thought that I was, doing something out here. But in God's eyes, I was not pure at all. I don't have it anymore because I got rid of it because, I don't need my husband to be thinking that I'm married or anything like that by me having my purity ring on. But I used to have a purity ring, but I used to be wearing that purity ring in the bed with these dudes. That purity ring didn't do nothing for me because I didn't have the proper understanding and perspective of what purity truly was. But yeah, it's a heart issue. Like, if you walking around with bitterness and nastiness and nasty attitude, like you gotta go fix that. You gotta go get that together with the Lord. So what you do with your body is a form of worship. Romans 12:1 talks about that. And Romans 12:1, that's the verse that says, present your body as a living sacrifice. Let me go and make sure. Yeah. So Romans 12:1 says, I appeal to you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. So what you do with your body is a form of worship, whether that be to God or be to the enemy. Because we just read in Romans 12:1 right then and there that you presenting your body as a living sacrifice is your spiritual worship. And then even in Romans 6:13, you're either using your body as an instrument for righteousness or unrighteousness. There is no in between. There is no trying to get as close to the line as we can. None of that. You're either using your body as an instrument for righteousness or unrighteousness. But as a Christian, as a believer, if you listen. If you call yourself a child of God, if you call yourself a daughter of the Most High King, a son of the Most High King, if you are, you're serious about this walk, you as a Christian are called and commanded to live a lifestyle of holiness. 1 Peter 1:13 through 23. We actually, my first lady just preached about this past Sunday of when I'm recording this video. Just preached about this and was talking about the call to be holy. And I just want to read parts of it. It says, therefore, prepare your minds for action and be sober-minded. Set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who has called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. So that's basically saying, like, as obedient children, you don't go back to them same desires, them same behaviors, them same things that you was doing before when you were ignorant to all those things, when you were in the world and you were doing the things of the world. But you are a new creature in Christ. At least you're supposed to be. Your old man is supposed to be dead. Your flesh is supposed to be dead. So if your old man and if your old flesh is supposed to be dead, then why is a dead man talking? As he who has called you is holy, so you must be holy in all of your conduct. It's a command. It's not an option. It's not a condition. No. The Bible says clearly, because God is holy and we're striving to be Christ-like, we are supposed to be holy in all of our conduct. We're supposed to be pure in all of our conduct, not just, in what we do with our body, but in what we think, what we say, how we act, how we love on each other. Okay, we can't be, petty is not purity. Petty is not cute. Petty is not a fruit of the spirit. No, not at all. So when you have a healthy fear or reverence for God, you're not going to want to do anything that goes against his word or anything that would disappoint him. If you're constantly slipping back into the same behaviors over and over and over and over again, there's no repentance, you're not trying to do, make any provisions and put up any boundaries to protect yourselves from falling into that same behavior again, then you may not actually reverence and honor God as much as you think that you do. Because if you really truly reverence and fear him, you're going to fear, the consequences of your action. I have a fear about disappointing God, and my fear is not that, you know, I believe that God is just gonna, you know, if I do something wrong, God's gonna come down, he's gonna smite me, I'm gonna be in trouble and all this kind of stuff. No. I fear the consequences of my actions. I fear that if I were to do something one day, or do something that I know I'm not supposed to do, that's going to cause a separation between me and God, because sin brings a separation and a distance between you and God. So I fear not being able to feel his presence anymore. I fear not being able to hear his voice. I fear just him not being like just around me as much as possible. I fear separation from him. So and because of that fear, whatever his word says that brings distance, I'm not doing none of that. I love my daddy. I love my Abba. I don't never want his presence to leave me ever. So whatever it is that I got to do to get myself in order, to get myself in line, so that way like I can keep feeling his presence and just, you know, and be in his favor and all of that, like I'm gonna do that. And then also at the end of the day, it's not worth it. Like those couple of moments, a couple of minutes of, you know, of pleasure that you could get from sex or whatever else that it could be, like it's not worth it. It's really not, because I'm sure it's just going to leave you empty. Whenever you do something outside of God's way, you don't get God's protection with it. You are opening up yourselves to be exposed to all these different things that God did not ordain and did not want for your life. But because you decided to step outside of his will and do things your own way, these are the, you know, now there are consequences to our actions. And also, I just want to let you know, like, some people have this perspective, and it's mainly, I think, for the people who like don't believe in deliverance or something like that, which this video is not about. But some people have this belief that they will never overcome their struggles. Like some people think that like they'll have to struggle with lust for the rest of their life, and I'm here to tell you that that's not true. Like when you're free, you are free indeed. Like I can sit here and say like lust is not something that I struggle with, because I've repented, I've done the work, I've asked God to, you know, change my desires, change my heart. I've set up boundaries, I surround myself in community, and I attack lust from when I guard my mind, I guard my spirit. And this is just a side note, like if you're not following me on Instagram or on Twitter, you need to, because I be doing my Mental Health Monday posts, and a lot of times the content that you might get on Instagram is not going to be the same content that you get on here. So I've made videos, little mini videos talking about, you know, guarding your mental space, because your mental space is connected to your spiritual space and all of that. So just a quick plug, go and follow me on Instagram and on Twitter if you're not already. But yeah, I've set up so many different boundaries within my life to where like I can literally see a lustful thought from a mile away. And so now, like, I know the kind of boundaries that I have to where I've been able to prevent that, and I've been able to remain walking in my walk of purity, is that, so I know before I used to go and listen to love songs and watch a bunch of romance movies. I cut that out. Like I can't do that. Like my tolerance for listening to love songs, for watching romance movies is very, 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 very low. I do not, and like I try not to do watch that stuff like when I'm by myself. I'll go, you know, with somebody else, because I know me. I know how my mind used to work. I will, you know, too much lovey-dovey, then I'll start, you know, try to go back like, oh, I just want to be all lovey-dovey with my husband and blah blah, and then my mind will start trying to go and picture. I cut all that out. I don't listen to sexual, anything that has sexual, none of that, because what you're putting into your mind is going into your spirit. So you're wondering why, you know, you literally listen to sex songs and songs that's talking about sex all day long, and you're wondering why you're struggling with pornography. You're wondering why you're struggling, you know, with lustful thoughts. You're wondering why, you know, you're struggling with, you know, remaining celibate and abstinent in your walk. Like you're wondering why you're struggling, but you're watching shows where they, you know, have the sex. Like if a sex scene pops up on the TV, best believe I'm grabbing the remote and I'm like, and if like a show, something like I used to love watching Power. But Power got got too much sex in it for me. And like, they got a good storyline and all of that, but it got too much sex in it. And the Lord was like, no, you can't watch that. And that is part of the sacrifice. Like, it is a sacrifice, because I really like Power. I like the storyline. And now I'm finding out, you know, that Ghost is dead, and all this other crazy stuff that I be seeing the highlights about. Like, I'm kind of sad, but you're presenting your body as a living sacrifice, and, you know, keep myself as a pure vessel for the Lord to use. So now we're going to jump in and talk about how to live a pure lifestyle.